Championship Wrestling will become Continental Championship Wrestling. It will involve one of the biggest the biggest studio audience for television wrestling. It will be originating live from Birmingham's Boutwell Auditorium on Continental Championship Wrestling. You'll be seeing all your favorite wrestling stars that you see week in and week out on Southeastern Championship Wrestling. The difference will be, it will be Continental Championship Wrestling, once again originating at the biggest television studio for wrestling, Boutwell Auditorium in Birmingham. And next week on the program, the host will be syndicated wrestling commentator, the greatest Gordon Soley. He'll be bringing you each week Continental Championship Wrestling. In addition to the great stars that you'll be seeing from Southeastern Championship Wrestling in action on the first edition of Continental Wrestling, stars like the Tennessee Stud Ron Fuller, the Universal Heartthrob Austin Idol, Bob Armstrong, the Lord Humongous, all your favorite stars, plus NWA World Heavyweight Champion Ric Flair will be in to kick off Continental Championship Wrestling. And it all takes place next week on this television station. It'll be a great event for you to be part of, the first week of Continental Championship Wrestling with commentator, host Gordon Soley, beginning next week. Continental Championship Wrestling will be taking the place of Southeastern Championship Wrestling. And not to confuse you, but just tell you once again that the Continental Championship Wrestling is the same as Southeastern Wrestling. The name has changed. The arena will be a big setting, a Boutwell Auditorium in Birmingham, Alabama. Gordon Soley will be the host. So be sure you're part of a history-making event next week as Continental Championship Wrestling will be seen on all of these television stations.
Welcome to Southeastern Championship Wrestling. Innovators in television wrestling with split screen, instant replay, and other technical firsts. The program voted #1 by the Wrestling Writers Federation. Join us now for a fast-paced competition of professional wrestling featuring the top stars from the world's largest governing body, the National Wrestling Alliance.
North-South Connection, welcome to this episode of Territorial. I am your host, Shawn Kidd, and for this episode, we are going to a territory that we have not touched on as of yet. It's something that I discovered on a lot of my searches as I go back of things that I'm not 100% familiar with. I am a little bit familiar with what this entity became, but definitely wasn't familiar with a lot of where it came from. So tonight, we're going to talk about the birth of Continental Wrestling. And Continental Wrestling was created, in 1985 and ran until 1989, was owned by Ron Fuller, who is Robert Fuller's brother, the Fuller brothers. However, prior to that, it was Southeastern Championship Wrestling, Southeastern Championship Wrestling, and was really based in primarily Knoxville, Tennessee, around Dothan, Alabama, so in the Florida territories. But anyway, so we're just going to kind of walk through tonight. What we're going to do is Southeastern Championship Wrestling. We're going to talk about the last episode of that, because literally the week after they transitioned over to Continental Wrestling. And my thought was, hey, let's look at the last episode of what Southeastern was and what they did to get ready for Continental to launch it the week after. But also kind of go through a brief history. Well, probably not so brief because there's a lot of history here. But I'm going to give you some notes and nuggets here to kind of walk through. So you heard at the beginning of the program where they were really pimping, hey, Continental Wrestling is starting. So that was what we played at the beginning. So let me go into Southeastern Championship Wrestling a little bit. So in 1974, Ron Fuller purchased Southeastern Championship Wrestling based in Knoxville, Tennessee. Ron Fuller took over the territory his grandfather and father had founded, and Fuller expanded Southeastern Championship Wrestling to run in southern Alabama, northern Florida. In addition, the Eastern Tennessee territory he already established. This was initially labeled the Southern Division of Southeast Championship Wrestling, treating them as two separate entities. Despite the plan to run a talent exchange between the two involving talent, spending 16 months in one end of the territory and then spend 8 months in another to regain momentum after losing steam in the previous one, which makes sense. Sometimes you have wrestlers that are around a long time. They kind of lose the focal point and lose their mojo, so they can go spend 8 months somewhere else and regain their momentum and be different somewhere else. In June 79, however, several members of the talent roster and behind-the-scenes personnel left Southeast Championship Wrestling over frustrations involving backstage politics with Ron's brother, Robert Fuller, who was considered lazy in terms of booking of the territory and spent many nights partying. And many felt his spot in he honestly felt Southeastern was owed to him since he was a member of the Fuller family. At least that's what the stars or his peers in the organization felt. So, led by Bob Roop, Ronnie Garvin, Bob Orton Jr., and Boris Malenko, All-Star Championship Wrestling fought a 6-month promotion war over the Knoxville territory. Many of these defectors later joined the Kentucky-based outlaw promotion International Championship Wrestling, owned and operated by Angelo Poffo. That is correct, the Macho Man's father, Angelo Poffo. After this, the Knoxville end of Southeastern experienced financial losses and ended up selling to promotions such as Jim Crockett sold to promotions such as Jim Crockett Promotions and GCW Georgia Championship Wrestling for the next 5 years. Fuller then made Birmingham his main end of the territory, with the Dothan end continuing to flourish, given early exposure to future stars such as the Fabulous Freebirds and the rising stars in the territories along the lines of Austin Idol, who we will talk about tonight, and also had appearances by Ric Flair, who would defend the NWA World Heavyweight title in the area each year, who, again, we're going to talk about him tonight because he is on the very first episode of Continental Wrestling. All right, so kind of a brief history there. So let's smooth this into Continental. So again, 1985 to 1989. Fuller decided that it was time to reach beyond southern Alabama, northern Florida area and repurchase Knoxville end of the territory. With his expansion came a name change to Continental Championship Wrestling. So after a failed negotiation with CBS, he settled on moving the television show out of the small television studio that they were doing in Southern Championship Wrestling, and into the big arenas where they did house shows in order to give the promotion a national look and feel. And while the name Southeastern restricted the promotion to a more regional feel, the name Continental gave fans the impression they toured all over the country except Alaska and Hawaii. And there is definitely a noticeable difference when they transfer from the studio environment to when they transfer over to the arena shows. Really big. And like one of the cool things they do is they have someone interviewing from the stage with Gordon Soley, and then they'll have somebody interviewing from inside the ring to talk about fight back at him. So the whole crowd's involved. It's a real back and forth kind of thing. It's a really cool kind of thing that they do here. So liken it a little bit to how they did like the TBS Studios taping of Saturday Night Wrestling to win on the weekend shows and syndication. You have the big arenas and the crowd, yada yada, just kind of that similarity a little bit. So in 1985, we were going to discuss the last episode of Southeastern Championship Wrestling, and we're going to discuss the first episode of Continental Wrestling launch from June 85. So what was the transition like? How did they do the transition? Did they do a good job with the transition? If I weren't a regular wrestling fan, or I was a fan, and I just tuned into Southeastern Championship Wrestling, and they say, hey, I'm promoting this new thing starting next week, would I tune in? Would I be anxious to tune in? So yes, I would totally want to be invested in a show. So it's kind of a risk to transition. I know Mid-South did it to UWF, but Mid-South was very cemented and kept the same look to a degree. But this one was interesting for me to check out. So with that out of the way, let's get down to the nuts and bolts of the action of Southeastern 1985 before tonight. So we're going to review the titles. And they have some really unique titles here, and actually quite a few titles that I'm shocked that they do have, because it seems like for such a kind of a regional promotion, the amount of titles they had is pretty intense. So your first one is the United States Junior Heavyweight Championship. I mean, it makes sense. Back in the day, there's a United States Heavyweight Champion in Jim Crockett Promotions. There's also a Light Heavyweight Champion, Junior Heavyweight Champion. So guess it makes sense that they could have a United States Junior Heavyweight Champion. So in 1984, this was mostly a focal point of Bill Ash and Scott Armstrong. When Armstrong suffered a legit broken wrist in the spring of 85, Ted Oates came in, was brought in as a replacement to battle Ash, but once Armstrong had clearance to compete, he was once again the top challenger for Ash's title. We are going to see some of that tonight. NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion, like I said, Denny Brown also made several title defenses in the area as well. So I know he was a Junior Heavyweight Champion, but Denny Brown is kind of like a custom jobber in Jim Crockett Promotions, even though he actually holds a major title, which is unique. Okay, so that was the U.S. Junior Heavyweight Championship. The next one we have is the Alabama Heavyweight Championship. At the beginning of 85, Pork Chop Bobby Cash was the reigning Alabama title holder. Although battling most of the Tennessee stud stable, Cash's main opponent was the 6'6", 300-pound Lord Humongous. Cash also had a short series of matches against Arn Anderson. So anyway, this was the main feud. When he battled the stud stable, Pork Chop had a lot of help from Bob Armstrong, who is a Southeastern and a Continental staple. In fact, the whole entire Armstrong family is as well. So anyway, this is where Stud Stable came into play a lot, and it's just a big feud. Like Stud Stable pretty much feuds with everybody. And then one day, the 6'9" Fuller, Ron Fuller, because he was the booker, returned to Southeastern TV to make an example of a man that was actually managing the stable at the time, and his name was, I believe, Louis Tillet. I don't know how to pronounce it, but Fuller starts going off on a tirade, and he starts getting into fights with people, and then he starts fighting with Humongous, and then he slaps Humongous on nationwide TV, and the next thing you know, Humongous is dragging Fuller off the TV desk, and the two are battling over the studios, and this makes Fuller's return to active competition, and turns Humongous into a good guy, which, again, you'll see tonight. So that is the Alabama Heavyweight Championship. Then we go into Southeastern Heavyweight Championship, and Pork Chop Bobby Cash led off the year 1995 as a Southeastern champion. So Bobby Cash was a hot commodity here, I guess, this year. So Cash's main adversary of the title was Stud Stable member Jimmy Golden. Upon Golden winning the belt, Jimmy immediately started his battles once again with arch enemy Austin Idol, which you will see those two battle on the first episode of Continental we talked tonight. Oftentimes, Idol and Pork Chop would tag together against any combination of Golden and other Stud Stable members. All right, which leads us to the Continental Heavyweight Championship. Before the Continental Championship was the jewel, in the Ron Fuller, Bob Armstrong feud in 84, early 1985 was no exception. So as a manager, Fuller used all the wrestlers in the stable to attempt to garner the Continental title from Armstrong. Kind of kayfabe, they claim that Bob had defended the Continental title successfully in other parts of the nation and crossed the challenges of Ivan Koloff, Ted DiBiase, and the Harley Race, and being a Continental champ also brought Armstrong several title shots against NWA World Champion Ric Flair. Finally, Ron Fuller found the man that could and would indeed garner the title into the Stud Stable, former heel Armstrong ally, the Masked Flame, who used to be an assassin named Jody Hamilton. And yeah, interesting. Jody Hamilton here as the assassin, and the ring apparel that he has as the Flame is pretty unique, but we'll talk about that as we get into it. Last but not least, the Southeastern Tag Team titles. As 1985 began, the Rap Patrol, consisting of Scott Armstrong, Steve Armstrong, and Johnny Rich, were still the tag champions, holding back the challenge of Rose Cousins, original Midnight Express member Randy Rose, and then you also had Pat Rose's brother. Then a new team came into the Southeastern promotion called the Masked Nightmares. And the Nightmares, you guys might remember, Danny Davis, who's one of the Nightmares, initially ran OVW when OVW became a thing. But initially, then they came in, they would end up dominating like force in the tag team wrestling in Southeast Continental for 2 years. And they had a really bloody feud with the Johnny Rich and Steve Armstrong. And again, we're going to talk a little bit about that again tonight, because that leads into a really super bloody feud. So a lot of the transitions of Southeastern Championship Wrestling, they maintain a lot of that going into Continental. But they do a really we'll talk about it when we get to Continental, but I think they do a really nice job of setting up Southeastern as it transitions to the Continental and how they do it. So we'll talk about that as we dive into these episodes. Under miscellaneous, Robert Fuller was in and out of Territorial several times in early 85 as a good guy, before finally making his first heel turn in Alabama later during the year. Another name that began getting a push on Southeastern TV, but he never showed up, was one ravishing Rick Rude. Bob Armstrong and Asta Idol made several interviews hyping the Rude of rival, but ultimately Rude decided that he would join World Championship Wrestling, where the rest is history. He would become the NWA Tag Team Champion with Manny the Bull Fernandez before moving on to the WWF after that run. All right, so let's talk about the last episode of Southeastern Championship Wrestling. This aired on 6/8/1985. Bill Ash is the U.S. Junior Champion. We talked about that earlier, which I have no idea what makes him a junior, as he looks like he ate a trough of junior mints. And he's on commentary with Charlie Platt. Bill Ash, again, I don't know what makes him a junior, but we'll run with it. So the start of this episode is pretty damn funny. So Ron Fuller comes out with the assassin at the time. He turns into the Flame or whatever, says he was going to identify who Lord Humongous was. An assassin, now known as the Flame, said Barb Armstrong has a video that he doesn't want Armstrong to air. Now, Humongous was a gentleman named Jeff Van Camp. He moved on to a wrestling promotion closer to his house in Florida as he began working for Southeast Championship Wrestling out of Alabama. In SCCW, he was given a new ring character, Lord Humongous. And Lord Humongous is really kind of a menacing masked wrestler inspired by the Evil Gang in the movie Mad Max 2. He was brought in by SCCW's main bad guy, Ron Fuller, to target the promotion's top good guys. But as we talked about, they had a really, really big face turn. So we're gonna play that video or promo, and then you're gonna have the follow-up promo from Bob Armstrong on that video, and then we're gonna play another video. So we're gonna play all these back to back to back. So you're gonna hear the setup of they don't want this video played. Then they claim they have a video of Humongous, and then you're gonna hear how it plays out. This is a so long angle, but I'm putting it together for all of you so you can kind of hear how this plays out and kind of intensifies a little bit. You put attention on the stud stable, Ron Fuller. You put attention on the Flame. You're putting attention on Bob Armstrong, and you're putting attention on Lord Humongous. And this feud that these guys have, and their net of it is they want to unmask everybody, and they want to prove who is who, and their mask plays into everything in this and trying to unmask. So let's give this promo a listen. This was a so long angle on the final episode of Southeast Championship Wrestling. So here we go.
Now, the Tennessee stud Ron Fuller and is...
I got just a few more minutes. Rather, you got just a few more minutes, Humongous. I'm going to reveal your identity, boy. I'm giving you to the end of this program to get over here and straighten things out with a stable, or, boy, you're going to be going the hard road. Flame's got something he wants to say, dude.
I negotiated with you in this station in good faith, trying to buy that piece of film that I do not want shown. And now I understand that Bob Armstrong has been able to purchase that film, even though I offered more money. I offered twice the amount that Bob Armstrong paid for that film. When I'm going to tell you something, I'm going to tell Bob Armstrong something. You ain't going to show no film out here today of Bob Armstrong taking my mask off. Not today, not next week, or the following week, or any other time. Do you understand me?
You better understand,
I've
David.
been nice up until this point. Don't make me turn violent.
That property is, the film in question is a property of Bob Armstrong, purchased by Mr. Armstrong, and he has the right, if he wishes, to show that particular piece of videotape, and that's coming up later on today's edition of Southeastern Television Wrestling. All in all, a great hour in store. You stay with a special personality profile.
I got the bill of sale. I bought the film. I got the film that shows the Flames mask being taken off. Never before done. He raised King here last week, threatened a lawsuit if we showed the film. I bought the film myself. I paid for it personally. Here's your bill of sale. And I'm going to show that. Wait, just a minute. Hold it. Wait just a minute. Wait a minute. Okay, we have, you think that we're going to show this film. I don't care what they say. We're going to show this film today. You have purchased it from a freelance. There you see it right there, buddy. And go ahead. Charlie, this may be the first time we've ever had.
I've never seen an armed guard out here in order for us just to show a piece of videotape. But it is interesting, and let's roll it. Bob, you tell the story.
Right here, what's happening is Lord Humongous has got a chokehold on that Tennessee stud, and it's going to take a crane to pop him loose. Everybody's beating on Humongous, trying to tear him off the stud, but like I said, he's got the chokehold. It'd take a bulldozer to get him away from that man. They're trying their best. Now, you're going to see I came in because Humongous has proved to be a good friend, and, brother, I'm going to give him a hand here, and we start taking names, and not necessarily in that order. We're kicking some butts, taking names, and right here you're going to see something in just a minute. Watch the Flame come right in front of your camera. There he is right there. Boomer Lynch is blinding me. He's turning me around. He's got me pretty good. Now you're going to watch what happens. He always says he don't throw the Flame. Watch where this fire comes from. I just got out of the way or it would have burnt my eyes out. Now right here, I just took it into my own hands. I said, brother, you're going to pay the price. I'm going to take that mask off and show everybody who you are. I started working on that mask right here, laces, and brother, he's got one of the tightest lace masks. He loves to protect that mask, but I got my fingers in them, Charlie, and I am pulling and I am ripping, and in just a minute you're going to see they try to pull him out, but they didn't make it in time. Just as they pulled, the mask popped off, and there I had the mask. All I saw was black curly hair, but everybody saw that black curly hair, and that's just a warning to you, Flame. Every time I see you, brother, I'm going to be going for that mask, and that mask is going to come off one way or the other. right there. She can like it or like. Thank you, gentlemen, very much. Let's get out of here.
All right, there you see the incident that took place. Bob Armstrong purchasing that piece of videotape. We got more Southeastern Television Wrestling on the way. You stay with us.
If you're going to play the computer.
The Tennessee stud, Ron Fuller. And
You're a good commentator there first, Chase. Now, I told you I'm going to reveal the contents of this envelope, and I intend... Hey, wait a minute. You got no business being out here. You ain't going to get this, boy. You ain't going to get no floor.
wait a minute, Fuller. Like a jackrabbit going over that.
Look at here. Look at here. Ain't nothing in there anyway. I knew this man already told me. He never took a picture of this man's face. He just pulling a bluff, and we called his bluff, right, Humongous? And now, brother, you go get ripped up just like the Lord Humongous is ripping up this thing, brother. We called your bluff, brother. Eights and aces, dead man's hand stud, over for you. Way to go, big man. We got him now.
All right, no pictures in the envelope, and the Tennessee stud just cleared our desk. He certainly wants no part, it seems, of Armstrong or the Lord Humongous. We'll be back with more Southeastern Television Wrestling in a moment.
Such a simplistic angle. So Bob Armstrong purchased a piece of videotape that showed that has the assassin unmasked, the stud stable not happy about it, the assassin and Fuller. Then they claim that, hey, they're going to do the same thing kind of with Humongous later in the show. And then net in the video from Bob Armstrong, you saw nothing but except black hair. But what I do love is that they're going to the local show to kind of show tapes. So if you're watching this as the last episode, you're kind of getting an insight what's been happening to be ready for the new Continental promotion, and you're seeing all these local shows. And then at the end, as you see at the end here, they called the bluff of what they had in the containment of files for Fuller and with Humongous in their files. So just a fun show, simple angle, good heat. You can hear the crowd in the background. So really, really, really entertaining stuff there. Again, that played out through the entire show. Moving on, the next thing that we have is we have a Scott Arms on the show. You have Scott Armstrong and Johnny Rich, known as Rat Patrol, and they fought two jobbers. And then after a commercial, we get a plug for a show that this Monday, where the main event is Ric Flair and Ron Fuller versus Lord Humongous and Bob Armstrong. But there is more on this show. But this is a really interesting plug, because what you're going to hear is multiple things about the Continental announcement. Then you're going to hear the tag team match plug in this. And this show is actually the show that Continental debuts. So when Continental debuts, not only are you going to have the TV tapings there, but you're going to have a main event of Flair and Ron Fuller taking on Lord Humongous and Bob Armstrong. And bringing in Flair for something like that, you already heard Fuller and Armstrong and the Humongous situation at the beginning. So this really kind of is a nice little tease, I think, having a world's champion come in and make this a really big deal. But let's listen to this Continental announcement and then talk about and listen to the tag title match plug that they do in this. And then we'll be right back.
A special night of pro wrestling this coming Monday night, 8 o'clock in Birmingham's Boutwell Auditorium. 8 big events in all, headlined by 2 steel cage matches. You'll see a U.S. junior title match as the Rat Patrol takes on Bill Ash. Special event, Randy Pinton takes on The Flame. Texas Death Match rules as Pork Chop Cash goes against Boomer H. Lynch. Return, Southeastern Heavyweight Championship match. Austin Idol takes on Jimmy Goldwyn. Steel cage match, Southeastern tag titles on the line. The Rat Patrol takes on the Nightmares. And steel cage match number 2. The Lord Humongous teams with Bob Armstrong to take on NWA World Heavyweight Champion Ric Flair and his partner Ron Fuller. Don't miss it. It all begins at 8 o'clock this Monday night in Birmingham's Boutwell Auditorium. All those matches plus 2 other television matches Monday night in Boutwell Auditorium, a history-making night. It will be the first night of Continental Championship Wrestling to be taped in Boutwell Auditorium. The NWA and other camera crews will be on hand taping all the events. 8 big matches in all, only a $1 increase in admission, and the host for Continental Championship Wrestling will be Gordon Soley. That's Monday night in Boutwell Auditorium. A lot is at stake for the Rat Patrol in the steel cage and U.S. junior title. Right now, let's hear from the Nightmares and Bill Ash.
You know, I've got a title defense, but that's already a foregone conclusion. What I'm really interested in is the demise of the Rat Patrol. You've heard of rats in a trap? Well, you're in a trap, boys. A big steel cage trap with the best tag team in wrestling today.
That's right, baby. And what a better way to start off with the first taping, baby, with Gordon Soley there. The whole entire world is going to view this, and we are going to demise the Rat Patrol right there. What a way, our glory. It will be all ours, baby. You be there, Rat Patrol, in that cage match.
Knowing the Rat Patrol, they have other plans for Monday night.
That's exactly right, Charlie. You know, the Rat Patrol's tickled to death to be in on this card. It's the biggest card ever in Montgomery. A lot of excitement, big camera crews, Gordon Soley, NWA. Everything's happening in Birmingham. Well, something's going to be happening for you, Mr. Bill Ash. You see this right here, brother? That's a star. Get used to it. You're going to be seeing a lot of them, especially come Monday night in Birmingham. Tell them about it, boys.
Steve, anything can happen in that steel cage.
It sure can, but the one thing we got in our favor is we all three have a stiff training regimen. We jog 7 days a week, so we're in real good shape, and we hope we can come through on top out of this thing. I'm predicting a lot of blood, and it's going to be all in the nightmares. What do you say, Johnny?
Charlie, you know, these boys, they've kind of got their own rules for this cage match. Well, we don't care because the bottom line is they put the belts up. And that's exactly what we've been after. We've been trying to get them. They've been running. They've been hiding. Well, this time they're going to be in the cage, and they can't run and hide. All they can do is get in there and get their butts kicked like they've been getting them kicked, and then we're going to climb over the top of that cage and walk away out of that Boutwell auditorium with them belts around our waist where they belong.
So really threw everything at the kitchen sink. The cage match, the tag team match, the U.S. Junior Heavyweight Championship match. Scott Armstrong, Scott Armstrong with a mustache kind of took me out a little bit in this. And the other big announcement in this was, hey, Gordon Soley's coming. So you're going to have Gordon Soley, who is going to host this show, and that adds a whole nother element. And what they do with that is really, really cool. But really good promo to pimp. They said cameras will be there, 8 matches on the card, the TV taping. So they're really doing a good job of selling all this, I think. So good stuff. All right, so moving on, then we have a Boomer Lynch squash. Don't know much about Boomer Lynch. Whoever that is, I probably could have done a little bit of research, but wasn't that overly impressed. Then he does a promo on Pork Chop Cash, and we get a video of a match where he actually beat Pork Chop Cash. So apparently Boomer Lynch and Pork Chop Cash are feuding. So from there, we get into a more extended promo because we have Lord Humongous and Bob Armstrong jump in now and talk about, hey, we have this match coming up with Flair. We have this match coming up with Fuller. And then you also get Ric Flair doing a promo with Tony Schiavone talking about him coming to the town. So they do really go out of their way really good with this one. So take a listen to this promo talking about the main event tag team match that they're going to have on the debut of Continental, at least at the taping that night.
A lot of wrestling history will be made. The premiere of Continental Championship Wrestling with Gordon Soley. We've already talked about a very unusual cage match. Southeastern tag titles on the line with unusual rules on top of that between the Rat Patrol and the Nightmares, and another history-making event, steel cage match with the NWA World Heavyweight Champion Ric Flair teaming with Ron Fuller to take on this pair, Bob Armstrong and the Lord Humongous. Bob Geigel has a big interest in this, and it stems from things that happened last Monday night.
Well, it got real wild, and Bob Geigel feels responsible, but he feels that this cage match in which the world champion will be involved as partners with Tennessee Stud for the first time ever, he feels that this cage match will settle all our problems, and it will for me. Because I'm going to tell you something. He put that figure 4 on me while I was handcuffed and couldn't do anything about it, but you didn't break the Bullet's leg. It's just, you've got to learn that the Bullet and Humongous can take a licking and keep on ticking. So, Flair, you're going to be back. I know he wouldn't be in this cage at all, but Bob Geigel said you will be there, and he will be there Monday night.
A lot of history to be made. And the NWA World Heavyweight Champion partners with Ron Fuller in a cage match. Well, the World Heavyweight Champion has some comments about that. Let's hear them right now.
It's all coming up Birmingham. You will see the tag team combination of Nature Boy Ric Flair, the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, in a cage, along with the Tennessee Stud Ron Fuller, as they team up in this cage to take on the Lord Humongous and Bob Armstrong. Here's the heavyweight champion of the world, Ric Flair.
All right, Tony, by now the whole world knows what came down. I had Bob Armstrong in a position where surely I would have broken one of those skinny legs. And the Lord Humongous stuck his nose in my business for the last time. I don't care how big
and how powerful you are, Lord Humongous, and how sneaky and how crafty you are, Bob Armstrong. There's only one Tennessee Stud, and there's only one Ric Flair, and the two of them together are going to cause havoc in Birmingham, Alabama. I don't think Birmingham or any other city in the world is big enough for what's coming down Monday night. The cage. Lord Humongous, have you ever had that mask jerked off your face and have your face rubbed in metal? Bob Armstrong, have you ever had 40 stitches here and there? Have you ever been cut? Have you ever bled? Have you ever paid the price? Well, Monday night, the Tennessee Stud and I are going to take you both all the way to the limit.
I enjoyed that interview. You told him like it was, Rick, baby, but you missed one thing. Bob Armstrong can bleed. We know that. He bled last Monday night. But that's nothing compared to what you're going to bleed this Monday night in the cage. And me and you been everywhere around the world together, right, Rick? We've been partners many, many times before. But Monday night in the cage in Boutwell, we're going to take care of Bullet Bob Armstrong. We're going to pull your legs through that cage and saw them off. And you're right, Flair. We're going to take that mask off of you, Humongous, and grind your face, boy, like hamburger meat. Hamburger meat in that cage. We're looking forward to it. Me and the world champion side by side. Never been a better pair in the ring. In the cage, you going down, Armstrong, and you too, Humongous, Monday night.
No handcuffs Monday night, but there is a steel cage with all 4 men inside.
That's right, and like Goggle said, this should settle it all. The world champion is very upset. Tennessee Stud is very excited. For the first time, there will be partners in Boutwell. And with all this stuff going on, Charlie, all the cameras from everywhere, we're going to take advantage of that. Lord Humongous and Bullet Bob are going to take advantage of it by beating the Tennessee Stud and Ric Flair. We can kill two birds with one stone, two buzzards, so to speak. We've been through it all. I can believe I got a hole in my head, and I know before that cage match is over, a lot of people are going to bleed. But it's worth every drop of blood I have to shed to put your shoulders on the mat, Ric Flair. And before it's over, Tennessee Stud, you'll rue the day that you ever took a dime from the Lord Humongous. Because Monday night in Boutwell, the true battle of Boutwell, it all comes to pass, and they're going to have it all on film. A picture's worth 1,000 words, and we'll take that picture Monday night in Boutwell. Count on it.
Two steel cage matches. We talked about the one, the Rat Patrol against the Nightmares, and the second steel cage match will be unusual circumstances, the NWA World Heavyweight Champion and tag team competition with Ron Fuller as his partner, facing the team of Bullet Bob Armstrong and the Lord Humongous. A history-making night in Boutwell Monday night, and a lot of scores will be settled from last Monday night in Boutwell Auditorium at 8 o'clock.
Good points of view from all sides. Ron Fuller, Ric Flair, and Bob Armstrong selling the match. Obviously, Bob and Flair have had some history. Ron Fuller as well. Kind of a big deal. Top heel in the territory, tagging with the World Heavyweight Champion against Bob Armstrong and Lord Humongous. So good stuff there. Really helps sell where we're going. And the TV taping for the first episode of Continental, as this will be the last episode of Southeastern Championship Wrestling. All right. Up next, we are going to play a promo of Austin Idol and Jimmy Golden. And I want you to listen to this promo, and then we'll talk about after the promo what happens from here. But Austin Idol, everybody knows him historically. He is in the current NWA now as a manager. And then Jimmy Golden, who I think most people, if you watched it in the 80s from a stud stable standpoint, it was primarily him and Robert Fuller that were the stud stable. I believe they were the ones that had together Super Clash 88. And they're the most ones that are probably most well known as the quote stud stable. They're also the ones that were in Smoky Mountain Wrestling as well. But he's a singles champion in Southeastern Championship Wrestling. He was a singles champion. That's the other thing I discovered is I always knew Jimmy Golden as the tag team guy. Because I really did like the stud stable, their USWA run I really enjoyed. So anyway, let's listen to this promo between Austin Idol and Jimmy Golden.
Certainly an eventful night this coming Monday night in Boutwell Auditorium, the first night for Continental Championship Wrestling at 8 o'clock. 8 big events in all, only a $1 increase in admission. One of those big double cage matches will include the NWA World Heavyweight Champion and it'll be the first night for the taping of Continental Championship Wrestling with Gordon Soley. It all starts at 8 o'clock in Boutwell Auditorium. A big night for Austin Idol. They'll be going after the Southeastern title of Jimmy Golden, and Pork Chop Cash taking on Boomer Lynch. Texas Deathmatch rules. Let's hear from Lynch and, of course, some comments from Jimmy Golden.
Jimmy, you know, I don't like to say bad things about my opponents, but if you notice, Pork Chop Cash looks a lot like a little ape. Well, we know he can't be any smarter than one if he's going to challenge me to a Texas death match.
He's got to be a real goose. You know, he's going around and around circles. He's like a little dog chasing his tail around and around. He don't know which direction he's going, and neither do you, Austin Idol. Take a good look right here, brother. I wonder who the big baby is this week, the Derby baby that's sucking on the bottle and saying, why, he stole my belt. Brother, you just signed a no disqualification match, and that means I can do anything that I want to do. When we step into Boutwell, you be ready for a fight, brother.
Idol?
Probably the biggest night in Boutwell, but it will not all be well for Jimmy Golden. Oh, yes, Gordon Soley, national syndicated television announcer, will be there. Oh, yes, cameras from all over the city, people from all over the country coming to cover this extravaganza. And I'm telling you one thing, Jimmy Golden, if you don't think, baby, that I'm fired up about it, then you're dead wrong. If you don't think that I don't know my direction, then you're dead wrong. Because on Monday night, baby, I'm going to teach you something about Austin Idol. You say, school is out, but school is going to be in for you, baby. I'm going to teach you R-E-S-P-E-C-T. It's called respect, Southern style, Boutwell. Come on, get some.
So you got the promo for the Lynch versus Pork Chop Texas Death Match on that card, and the main event, a big main event, Austin going for the Southeastern title against Jimmy Golden. And that will be on episode 1 of Continental. That is what main events the show. So nice little tease there. So that ends the final episode. Oh, I'm sorry. One last thing is you have Humongous take on a jobber. I believe I mentioned it earlier on the show. But Humongous is in kind of like a jobber match and destroys a guy. But all said, I thought this was a fun episode. I think it caught us up on where we were at. Announcing a major title match to hook us in for the debut, as well as Ric Flair appearing. And with the Ric Flair appearing, I mean, I thought maybe potentially we were going to see that tag team match in a cage, but we don't, which we'll talk about in a second. But if you really think about the card they advertised, a cage match for the tag team titles, a U.S. Junior Heavyweight title match, Ric Flair teaming with Fuller, like this is the Texas Death Match they just talked about. Really, really full-on card here. And I think they did a pretty good job of selling the TV show and probably selling tickets to get people out into the arena in Continental. So I'm considering myself sold. So after I watched this and I kind of watched it all play out, the show angles, things like that. Now, the match, there was not really any match on here to really grip you. I think this is more about showing what the feuds were, pimping the Continental, showing the characters, things like that of the story. As far as match quality on here, there's not a whole lot going on with matches on this at all. It's all jobber squash matches with more storyline and pimping of the debut of Continental. So pretty decent episode. So now let's transition into episode 1 of Continental.
Welcome to Continental Championship Wrestling, home of the National Wrestling Alliance, featuring champions from throughout the continental United States. And now to your host, world-renowned wrestling commentator, Gordon Soley.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Continental Championship Wrestling. My thanks to my good friend Mike Jackson, and what a premier program we do have in store for you this evening. You're going to be watching the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, Ric Flair, in action. You're also going to be seeing the Flame. You'll be seeing the Tennessee Stud. In a Southeastern Championship match, Jimmy Gorgeous Golden going up against Austin Idol and a host of other great competitors. So by all means, do stay tuned. I can assure you of one thing. When you see the banner of Continental Championship Wrestling in the NWA, you know that you're going to see the very optimum in wrestling competition. Right now, let me bring in the NWA World Heavyweight Wrestling Champion, a gentleman who has become a legend in his own time, Mr. Ric Flair. Rick, welcome aboard.
We're
Championship Wrestling put this together. You're talking about one of the biggest promotions anywhere in professional wrestling. Obviously, they wanted the number one man here, Gordon. In this case, it applied to two men. Gordon Soley to do the commentating, and the world's heavyweight champion, Ric Flair, to do the wrestling. I'm proud to be part of it. And all you people throughout the Continental Championship Wrestling scene, be used to seeing the best, the greatest stars in all of professional wrestling, and of course, the big daddy of them all, Ric Flair, whenever the price is right. Gordon?
Rick?
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The NWA World Heavyweight Champion 3 times over.
So we have officially kicked off Continental. That is how they open the show. I love the Axel Foley thing at the song at the beginning, transitions right into Soley. Soley is on the stage and definitely already a bigger feel in the arena, and Gordon echoes throughout the whole arena. Great vibe. Flair putting himself over and the new territory over, making it a really, really big deal. So really well done there. Flair actually, this is the night that he's in that cage match, but however, I guess he wrestled twice that night because he's taking on a jobber. And I know this was a taping and he was in a big cage match later, so I guess him on TV in any match at any time was a big deal. Although when I first initially watched this, I was kind of hoping that we would get him, I was hoping we would get him in that tag team match, but unfortunately we did not. However, what we do have is Mike Jackson is the ring announcer for this match. And yes, it's that Mike Jackson, the former Alabama junior champ, who had a very famous match with Flair on TBS, and he currently actually wrestles in GCW in his 70s. He is a ring announcer here, and I was kind of doing some research on this. This is 85, and I know he wrestles Flair later, but he was a ring announcer at the time because he had surgery on both his knees, and he had no full-time job, so they employed him as a ring announcer, which I thought was pretty cool. So pretty lengthy match, about 7 minutes, but all this was to basically showcase Ric Flair as world champion. We then get a Bob Armstrong Bad to the Bone video. Armstrong's literally in Continental, based on what I've learned, are like the Von Erichs in World-Class Championship Wrestling, and he is ultimately the Fritz. And that might be a poor comparison based on character judgment, but it's very similar with the Armstrongs here. And you could almost say the stud stables like the Freebirds, but the Armstrongs definitely are the faces of Continental Wrestling. There's no doubt about it. So anyway, we are going to cut to a promo that talks about a double title match that's coming up. So I want you to hear this one because this is a really interesting premise. A double title match for titles that thinks would also be a great tease if it were on TV. So listen to this. This is the first promo that they do on the new show, Continental.
Continental Championship Wrestling returns to Birmingham Monday night, 8 p.m. at the Botwell Auditorium. See the United States Junior title match with Scott Armstrong facing Bill Ash. The Texas Death Match sees Pork Chop Cash going up against Boomer Lynch. The Southeastern Tag titles pit Tommy Rich and Steve Armstrong against the Nightmares. The Southeastern title return with Austin Idol versus Jimmy Golden. Special double championship tag match, Continental and Alabama titles at stake. Lord Humongous and Bob Armstrong versus Ron Fuller and The Flame. Monday night, 8 p.m., Botwell Auditorium, Birmingham, Continental Championship Wrestling. Be there.
Well, I'll tell you what, we have a most unusual situation right now. 2 championships at stake, 2 single championships in a tag team match.
That's exactly right. The only way we can get to the Tennessee Dud and the Fearless Flame is to put up the Continental title and the Alabama title. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Tag team match, winner take all. They say we got a lot to lose, but if we get our hands on them boys, they'll be the losers.
All right, fair enough. The comments now for Bob Armstrong. Let's go to the ring for this comment.
Can you believe the unmitigated gall of these 2 idiots? Going to put both their titles on the line against the Flame and the Tennessee Stud, the 2 most devastating wrestlers in professional wrestling today. All I can tell you boys is this. You better sleep with them belts for as long as you can. Because come next you're going to be gone. That's right, Daddy.
Not only that, I'm going to be the Triple Crown man. I'm going to get the Continental title and the Southeastern title and the Alabama title all in one night.
Okay, well, you've heard the comments from the Flame and the Stud. You've heard the comments over here. It all remains to be seen.
Nice hook there for the double title match advertising coming up after this first week's taping, where you have the core of what we saw earlier, Humongous and Bob Armstrong taking on the Flame and Fuller for 2 singles titles. So really good stuff there. Nice pimp. What I loved is that they did the advertisement at the beginning just with the regular advertisement. Then you went to the live stage where the faces were on the stage, and then went to the ring where the heels were, and they were shouting at each other across the arena, which is something really, really unique that you didn't see at the time. And I love how they set that up to make it kind of different. But again, another really nice hook for the next week here in episode 1. So really, really good. Moving on, we have the Flame, and he takes on a jobber. And I think I brought it up earlier, the Flame. He used to be the assassin, but now he looks, and he wears like a Santa Claus undergarment, like a singlet, and he's a flame, and he's got an undergarment, and he's a flame with a traditional yellow mask. Just a very plain look, almost funny looking. So if you ever seen a Christmas movie with Santa, like in his red long johns, that's what the assassin reminds me of. So maybe you take his mask off and he looks like Santa Claus. I don't know, but it's just a really, really interesting look. So from there, we go to another promo, and this is Porkchop and Scott Armstrong talking about their feuds and what happened. And if you remember, as part of the pimping of the first episode of Continental, the one we're watching tonight, Scott Armstrong was going to take on Ash for the U.S. Junior Heavyweight title. So listen to this promo, and then I'll be back to tell you what exactly happened, because something's definitely happened when you hear this promo.
Let's take a moment right now to talk to 2 gentlemen who certainly need no introduction. I'm referring, of course, to Scott Armstrong and Porkchop Cash in some Texas death matches upcoming.
Yes, sir. I want to challenge that Boomer right now. Texas death match. That's America way. Boomer, Texas death match. You know what a Texas death match is? Brother, put one standing up. That's the man to win it. The man got to be standing up. And Boomer, that means I can bring anything in the ring. Anything I want. I'm going to play it your way. You always bring something in the ring. Brother, I'm going to start bringing something in the ring. Take the death match, Boomer. You sign it, brother. And I got you where I want you.
Mr. Bill Ash runs his mouth all the time. Mister, I'll wrestle you anytime, anywhere. Just sign the contract. I'm in the driver's seat now, mister.
All right, let's see what Boomer Lynch and Mr. Bill Ash have to say. Let's go to the ring.
Texas death match, Boomer Lynch. What do you got to say about it?
Big bloody deal. I leave you lying on your nose in the ring every time I get in the ring with you. So why should things change this time? Yes!
U.S. Junior title, Ash.
These people know that I've had that belt longer than anybody else has. The only way that Scott Armstrong took that belt was he stole it by cheating. The man could never, ever beat me head-on in a fair match. Well, I'm telling you, the professor is going to put his brain to work, and I'm going to come up with something special for you, Scott Armstrong. I promise.
Okay, we've heard the comments from those 2 gentlemen. They're not afraid to meet the challenge.
Just like I said, sign the line, mister. I'm still in the driver's seat.
All right.
And I want to tell that Boomer something. Brother, you got it, and I'm going to get it away from you.
Let's go back to the ring.
So Porkchop and Steve Armstrong up on the stage. I'm sorry, Scott Armstrong are up on the stage. Porkchop talking about his Texas death matches that have all been signed. What's changed, though, since Southeastern Championship Wrestling, if you remember, they were promoting the U.S. Junior Heavyweight title match for tonight between Ash and Armstrong. Well, apparently that has already occurred because Armstrong is the U.S. Junior Heavyweight champion now, which means this was taped later on in the show, and I guess Armstrong had defeated Ash earlier in the night. So right out of the gate, the crowd in person got a title match and a title change. So Scott Armstrong apparently is your new U.S. Junior Heavyweight champion. But I really love how the promos are highlighting the wrestlers, the angles, and the titles. I'm seeing in this episode, like you got a double match for 2 singles titles coming up next week. You have a new U.S. Junior Heavyweight champion. And again, just if I'm not knowing any of this, the promos are highlighting the wrestlers, the angles, and titles of what I'm seeing this episode, and there's no historic value as well as enhancement matches to show the stars, and I'm okay with that because they're going to end with a main event, but they've done a really good job in the last 2 episodes, really showing the characters, showing who they are, and I really appreciate that. So anyway, Scott Armstrong, you're new U.S. Junior Heavyweight Champion. Apparently that happened earlier in the evening of this taping. Then we have Ron Fuller in a match, taking on a jobber again. He's doing double duty tonight because he will be in that cage match, tag team match with Ric Flair later tonight. Now we're going to go to a tag team that we talked about from Southeastern Championship Wrestling, the Nightmares. And if you remember, there was supposed to be a tag team title match tonight for the Southeastern tag team titles. The Nightmares were going to take on I believe the Armstrongs and Steve Armstrong and Johnny Rich. And you see highlights for the cage match, and apparently, again, it happened earlier tonight, and they advertised it last week. But listen to this promo, because this promo and this feud kicks off some pretty amazing stuff that we will see moving forward. So take a listen.
I'd like to take a moment right now and talk to 2 gentlemen who are not perhaps the most popular competitors in the world,
But the best. We're not the most popular, but we're the best. Go ahead.
Well, gentlemen, in just a moment, I'm going to be giving you back your Southeastern Tag Team Championship belts.
You ain't giving us back nothing. We earned it. We come in here and told these people we were going to be the Southeastern Tag Team Champions, and we are the Southeastern Tag Team Champions, and no one, not even you, Gordon Soley, can deny that fact.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to take a look back in time right now at an incident that occurred between the Nightmares and the Rat Patrol. I have asked them to join me right now so that we could get a look at it from their point of view. So if you have the moment, here we go into the steel cage match, and you can pick it up from here.
Right there, Gordon, you just saw teamwork at its best. We shot that Steve Armstrong into those ropes. The back of his head hit that cage. He come off, and we double clotheslined him right there, baby. Had him down for the count, and you see it.
Well, he is down, and he's in a lot of trouble.
Well, there was a mistake right there. Everybody can make a mistake. It ain't no big deal. Because, see, when we entered this cage match, we knew what we were going to do. We knew we cannot lose a cage match. We've never lost one. But the reason we have the Nightmare rules is because of exactly what you're going to see happen here on this tape. Nobody gets on us like this. Nobody gets a win on us in a match. And you're fixing to see here on this tape exactly what happens to them for it.
Okay, and of course, in a steel cage match, nobody can get in, nobody can get out until a winner is declared. And we do have a situation here where people did leave the ring.
Well, that's right. That was one of our stipulations. The only way you could win this type of match is to score a pinfall and climb out of the cage. Well, Steve Armstrong was lucky enough to do that, but he made a mistake. You see, we were one step ahead of everybody, as you can see. We knew that if by some chance one of them did score a pinfall and get out of the cage, we would be left in the ring with one of the other. 2 against 1, our odds, baby. And right here you're seeing just exactly what happens when it's 2-on-1. We are far superior to anybody inside a cage match. Do you understand?
All right, and of course, as a result of the injuries sustained in this match, we do have a problem in regards to when the gentleman will return to action.
That's right, Johnny Rich. You know, they had to come along, and they had to do something to us that made us real mad. They tore our mask, and they busted one of our heads, and that's something you don't do to the Nightmares. Now, because that happened, right here when you see this tape, baby, this is the whole reason it happened. It's revenge, baby. It's revenge, because everybody knows a revenge is a dish that should be served up cold. And, baby, you can't get no colder than one of them standing on the outside of that cage watching his partner, his friend, and his confidant getting smashed by the Nightmares, and there's not a thing he can do about it. He can't get in the ring to help. And Johnny Rich, everybody watches Johnny Carson, right? And they say at the beginning it comes out, and as Ed McMahon, he says, here's Johnny. Well, we got one for you, baby. Yeah. Way Where's Johnny? He's in the hospital somewhere. He can't make it, baby. Johnny Rich may be out for a lifetime. And who do you got to thank for that, Gordon? All these people have been thanking us. Thank you for getting rid of part of the Rat Patrol. Johnny Rich is history, baby. He's like a Soviet leader. He ain't around very long, baby.
Well, he's got a cousin by the name of Tommy Rich who intends to settle some scores, too, though.
Well, let me tell you something, baby. They can bring Tommy Rich in. They can bring in Grandma Rich. They can bring in anybody they want. But, baby, the fact remains the Nightmares are the greatest team that has ever graced this town. And let me tell you something. Before you give us our presentation, we want to make a presentation. Does anybody know where Johnny Rich is? We want to send him these flowers. Now, I tell you what, bring Tommy Rich on, and we'll give him we're going to reunite the Riches, baby. We're going to put them in the same hospital room. How about that, huh? We're going to send them flowers.
Well, gentlemen,
flowers for the Riches.
you may be passing out flowers. Here are your belts back. They're yours, and there's not much we can do about it.
Thank you, Gordon. It's been a pleasure.
Championship on the line. Tommy Wildfire Rich and Steve Armstrong against the Nightmares. In a moment, we're going to hear from Tommy Rich, and then later I'll talk to the Nightmares. Right now, Steve Armstrong.
You know, Johnny's not just my partner. He's a very close personal friend of mine, and his cousin Tommy's coming in, and we're going to take care of business. You better believe that, Nightmares.
All right, it's all going to happen Monday night. Now let's listen to these comments from Tommy Rich.
A man with a cause, that's Wildfire Tommy Rich. Now, he's popular, and he certainly generates a lot of excitement every time he steps into the square circle. But right now, you seem to be a man with a mission, Tommy. You got something very important on your mind concerning Johnny Rich.
You know, Freddie, it seems like you get into the wrestling business and you be traveling on the road. Sometimes you don't get to see your family. Well, I broke Johnny into professional wrestling, and so when something happened to him, of course, Johnny's my cousin, too. So what I'm saying is the Nightmares, they took upon themselves. There was two of them. 2 on 1. It don't take much to do that to hurt somebody. Nightmares, somebody said something about fire it up, fire it up. Because what I'm telling you is, I don't care where it's at, anytime, anywhere, any place, Johnny can't be there. You better be looking over your shoulders for him, because he can't get around. But what I'm telling you is, I can be there in live, living color, so you better be ready. Fire it up!
It could all be over Monday night in Birmingham.
You're right. It could all be over for the Rat Patrol. They lost one partner, so what they do, they bring in the other partner, baby, Tommy Wildfire Rich. Well, I understand that Johnny Rich, where's Johnny, has got a semi-private room. Well, that makes it good because that means he's got an empty bed in that hospital wherever he's at. And, baby, we got the stuff to put Tommy Rich in there with you, Johnny boy. So if you'll let us know where you are, we'll send you these flowers because they're beginning to get a little wilted. Where's Johnny?
We're going to find out Monday night in Birmingham at Boutwell Auditorium.
Johnny Rich coming in. The Nightmare cage match was really cool. It was pretty brilliant on the part of the Nightmares, and actually a match that through the stipulation worked out better being on the losing end of it. The object was not to get a pinfall, but the first member of a team to climb over the ring into the floor would be declared the winner of the match. Only problem was, though, once outside the locked cage, your partner is left inside to be brutally double-teamed by the losing team. And a brutal tombstone to Johnny Rich in the cage in this. And again, this leads to Tommy Rich coming in. You heard that promo, and Armstrong and him have a really fantastic tag team run. I've been watching this. And it's like almost week to week with Continental, which is really cool. You get main event matches every single week moving forward. And it's always something with the stud stable. There's a lot of Tommy Rich and, I mean, just the main event guys and main event matches because they're taping them from the arenas. And again, this is something that you did not typically see all the time. Like if you watch syndicated TV or NWA or World Class 9 times out of 10 had a couple main events. But this one, like NWA would maybe have one on a show every so often, and WWF would throw in one that was a quasi main event. But this one, every week you had some kind of main event, and a lot of it was Tommy Rich and Armstrong as a tag team. And they feud with the Nightmares, but they have a stud stable feud that is unbelievable. But anyway, because the Nightmares dumped Johnny on his neck, they get the belts handed back to him, and in the end, the Nightmares are absolute assholes where they say, hey, wilted flowers and where's Johnny? So bunch of pricks here, but really, really good stuff. And it continues to sell some of the great stuff you're going to see here in Continental. All right. So we're to our main event for the Southeastern heavyweight title, Southeast title. And it's, you heard the promos. You heard the promos on our last episode before we got to this in Southeastern Championship Wrestling. It's Austin Idol versus Jimmy Gordon. And there's a big crowd reaction for Idol, and the arena feels bigger than some of the Crockett TV taping arenas. Gordon is great putting over the belt, hyping Idol, and reminding us all that Golden is a member of the stud stable. Idol hits an elbow, making Golden bail, and crowd is nuts. There's an Idol headlock, Golden into the ropes and goes to whip Austin in the corner, but he gets clocked in the face. Idol on a rope whip hits a shoulder block, Golden back up and goes for a reverse leapfrog, but Idol stops and clubs him from behind and sends him outside. Really good, nice face shine spot in this. Golden and Irish whip finally clobbers Austin with a jumping knee to face, body slam, throws him to the floor, follows him outside and punches him and drops him throat first on the guardrail. Golden keeps dropping him throat first every time he climbs the apron. Idol back in, grabs him and atomic drops the knee. Elbows to the leg, figure four, gets to the ropes, and then Golden pulls the Idol down and puts feet on the ropes to go for 3, but ref sees it. Idol rolls up for 2, then there's an atomic drop, and we'll take you to the ending of the match from here.
Headbutt by Golden. No, sir. No, sir. Not a pinfall. Golden's got him. Golden misses with a haymaker right. Idol has him up, an atomic knee drop. Idol going for a full Boston Crab. And Golden breaks it up. No, sir. No, sir. Into the ropes once again. He was out.
Ladies and gentlemen, a time of 8 minutes and 17 seconds. The fall in the match, and the new Southeastern Heavyweight Champion, Austin Idol.
We've got a brand new Southeastern Heavyweight Champion, Austin Idol, successfully challenging and defeating gorgeous Jimmy Golden. We're going to try and get Austin Idol up here to Mike's side if we can. But right now, of course, a jubilant crowd, thousands.
I'm just glad I could do it right here in front of this Continental Wrestling Association. Beautiful crowd. I'm just thankful to God I can be here.
Well, I'll tell you what, before you go anywhere, hang in. I think it might be appropriate at this time to see if Mike Jackson can get a word from the former champion, gorgeous Jimmy Golden. Mike?
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm at ringside with a very irate Jimmy Golden. Jimmy Golden, your thoughts on the new Southeastern Heavyweight Champion?
Austin Idol, you are nothing, boy. You are a paper champion. You know as well as I know that there's a clause in the contract. You got to give me a return match, boy. And you know you ain't never going to keep that belt. I'm the Southeastern champion, and I always will be, boy. You listen to my words. Mark it down in your book. You come back into this ring, boy. I'm going to show you what a real champion's about. I'm going to kick your butt.
Well, obviously, of course, there is a rematch clause involved, so you are going to have to meet him again.
And I'll be glad to do it, Gordon. You know, it doesn't sound to me like Jimmy Golden is too happy. You see, because we've seen Jimmy Golden rise. We've seen Jimmy Golden fall. And now all we're going to see is Jimmy Golden ball. That's why they call him the Cry, baby. Come on, get it, baby. Come on and get it. Come on and get it if you can.
Southeastern Tag Team Championship at stake here in this steel cage match. Unfortunately, time is just about gone for this hour of Continental Championship Wrestling. Next week, Tommy Wildfire Rich will be here. Bob Armstrong, the Lord Humongous, a special training film on the Flame, and a special on Austin Idol. We invite all of you to join us next week here at the Boutwell Auditorium next Monday night for Continental Championship Wrestling, wrestling at its very, very finest. And we sincerely hope that you've enjoyed this premiere broadcast of Continental Championship Wrestling. Again, we invite and solicit your cards and comments just like...
Great, really good match here. I love the Boston Crab reversal into another reversal for the win. However, Golden was right there in the ropes, so it was a little questionable, but it doesn't matter. I really like the match and gives us a new champion on a brand new show and hooks you right away. So if you were in the audience that night, you had the tease of one tag team title changing hands, but they got them back with the tag team titles. You had a new U.S. Junior Heavyweight Champion, and then you have this brand new Southeastern Champion. I actually went 3 stars. It hooked me right away, and the charisma of Austin Idol was pretty off the chart, and the crowd was absolutely going insane. And then I love the heels, and the promo after was good as well. I love the heels in the ring, like I talked about, in the faces and Gordon on the stage. They go off the air with the tag team title match, but pretty sure it's the same one we saw earlier tonight that we talked about, where they had to get the belts back. But a really good end for Southeast. Hot start to Continental. I totally would have been hooked as a wrestling fan. And by the way, I was hooked because after I watched these episodes, I kept watching. One thing I noticed about Continental is the roster shifted so much. Austin Idol wasn't around that long. Dutch Mantel comes in for a little bit. Dick Slater, all these different stars come in, but they're only there for a cup of coffee. Tommy Rich is actually here longer than I thought he was going to be, but just a fascinating TV show to watch. And the crowd is hot. The matches are good. Lots of blood. I can't say enough about early Continental. And then towards the back side of it, after 86, it really starts to go a little bit south. They try to rejuvenate a little bit with Eddie Gilbert and Paulie Dangerously at the time, but that's another story for another time. But anyway, you would probably be very happy to go watch this. I would definitely go take a look. And if you've never watched Continental Wrestling, I would probably start off with episode 1. No need to watch Southeastern Championship Wrestling. I mean, you could and go back and watch the history of that, but there's something unique about Continental, and it hooked me right away, and I thought it was great. So definitely worth the watch. And again, I look forward to discussing some of the great feuds ahead on future episodes in Continental's 4-year run. So I'm sure we will revisit it again. So with that, guys, that concludes tonight's look at Southeastern Championship Wrestling turning into Continental Wrestling. So I will see you next time on our next episode of Territorial.
Well, it's all right. Riding around in the breeze. Well, it's all right. If you live the life you please. Well, it's all right. Doing the best you can. Well, it's all right. As long as you lend a hand. You can sit around and wait for the phone to ring. Waiting for someone to tell you everything. Sit around and wonder what tomorrow will bring. Maybe a diamond ring. Well, it's all right. Even if they say you're wrong. Well, it's all right. Sometimes you gotta be strong. Well, it's all right. As long as you got somewhere to lay. Well, it's all right. Every day is Judgment Day. Maybe somewhere down the road away. The end of the line. You'll think of me and wonder where I am these days. The end of the line, maybe somewhere down the road when somebody plays. The end of the line. The Purple Haze. Well, it's all right. Even when push comes to shove. Well, it's all right. If you got someone to love. Well, it's all right. Everything will work out fine. Well, it's all right. We're going to the end of the line. Don't have to be ashamed of the car I drive. I'm just glad to be here, happy to feel that. And it don't matter if you're by my side.